Spirits of Barons and Baronesses, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to the final episode of Retro Flashback's 2013 Halloweek. I've got a really interesting game to end off this week-long series for you. This is one that has a cult following, but that a lot of people haven't heard of, and there's a few reasons for that. This is a really unique game called Clock Tower, and what makes it unique, well, there's a few reasons for that. Number one, it's a point-and-click adventure game on the Super Famicom / Super Nintendo. Pretty rare in and of itself. Number two, it never came out outside of Japan. We are actually playing a fan-made English translation today. And no, I'm not going to tell you where to find that. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. Number three, it was developed by the now sadly defunct Human Entertainment, and if you've been paying attention this week, you may remember that Human Entertainment were the developers of the crazy acid trip of a platformer known as Monster Party for the NES. And after a brief foray into making crazy-ass games like that, they shifted focus into almost exclusively horror games, which is what they did for several years until their sad demise a number of years later. And this was one of their first attempts at horror, and it's really amazing because the fourth impressive thing about this game is that it's actually kind of scary. And, well, frankly, making a scary game in the 16-bit era even was really, really hard to do because, well, the technology wasn't really there, both graphically and sound-wise, but this game just drips in creepy atmosphere. And on top of that, the story is, well, it's pretty dark, actually. There's a lot of murder and death and a young girl being utterly terrorized. And this also was an early game to adopt a trope that's fairly common in modern horror games, which is there is no combat. There's only one principal enemy in this game, which I will show you in this video, and your only option when he decides to come at you is to run. You cannot fight him, you cannot beat him until you progress to the end of the actual story. And that's what's really cool about it. So, as you can see, this has a very almost realistic looking art style. Certainly not the cartoony nature of most Super Nintendo titles, which was something that Human Entertainment did very, very well. So you're seeing the basic principle here. You are one of a group of orphan children who has supposedly been adopted by this family who lives in this creepy house called the Clock Tower in the middle of nowhere. And that's kind of the majority of the setup. The setup is very minimal, and you actually learn more about the history and what's going on and the horrible story behind this place as the game progresses. And this house has got some pretty screwed up history. I'm not going to spoil a lot of this game, actually, because I think if this kind of thing interests you, you should find a way to play this translation for yourself. This game, sadly, actually did come out on a number of platforms. This is the original, but it also did come out for Windows, on the PlayStation, and for reasons passing understanding, the Wonder Swan of all things, a couple of years later. And you can actually get this on the Japanese Virtual Console right now, but unfortunately, there is no official English version, so if you want to play it in English, you're going to have to do some digging. Alright, so here we are. So this is the little prelude here. So this is a point-and-click adventure game in the fairly traditional sense, but what is a little different about it is that Human actually did a really good job of adapting it to a controller. So you move around with this, you do have a thing, it does look like a mouse pointer, it kind of works like a mouse pointer, controlled by your main axis here, and basically the majority of the interactions in this game are just the X button. And you walk around by clicking where you want to go, and anything you can interact with, you hover over it, it will sort of snap to it and turn into a square. And that's with anything you can talk to, that you can interact with, that you can do other things with like that. That's the only action. You don't have to say, look at this person, touch this person, talk to this person, etc. You don't have to select the contextual action. You just have to highlight over something, it'll tell you if you can do something with it, and you can. And you are playing this young girl throughout the entire game. And we're going to show you what happens here shortly that sort of kicks off the climactic event of this. So this woman says she's going to go get Miss Barrows, which is your new adoptive mother, and then she starts to take for a while. And you're kind of like, what's going on here? He looks a little creeped out. Here we go. Should I go find Miss Mary? No, I'll do it. What's the worst that could happen, right? Oh, creepy music. That's another cool thing about this game, too, is it's dripping in creepy atmosphere, and it does it with such minimal sound design. But the recorded sound design is so good. Like, the sound effects are really good, and really, there's a lot of digitization, so they... Oh! What happened? The main hall. And everybody's gone, and all of a sudden it's really dark. Uh-oh. What the heck's going on here? And that's what's great. That, like, everything is digitized. The footsteps are digitized, and now, by the way, by double tapping the X button, you can now run, too. The sound effects are digitized, the voice sampling is digitized, and there's very, very little music. It only comes into play in very specific times, and when it does, it's very minimalist. It's not overly complicated composition, but it does such a good job of just making you feel at ease, unease, and on edge. This game's always sort of riding the line of... It always makes you think something's going to happen and shock you, and it's very good at creating real tension. And that was so hard to do in the 8 and 16-bit era. Like, they were working with some pretty primitive technology then, and the way horror fiction scares you... Oh, God! Well, that's not good. This house ain't exactly in good shape. And the way horror films and modern horror games scare you is by creating tension and by making you uneasy and then just really shocking you suddenly and really giving your system a jolt. And that was very hard to do when you were working with sort of primitive sprites like this. And I mean, there are some deficiencies. As you can see, the animation quality is not necessarily the best thing. Like, the movements are nice, but you can see your character doesn't really have a lot of actual frames of animation to her movement. 60 frames per second game, this is not. And it's definitely... The animations are fairly basic, but it's really the environment here that does it. And the way this works, this is what's cool, is the UI is so minimal. You have your character portrait. How that is colorized determines how stressed out she is. So you can see she's kind of nervous right now. That will only get worse as things go on. And there's no health bar. There is inventory in this game, but it's very, very minimal. There's no pile of options, look at, talk to, like you saw in a lot of adventure games at the time. It's really just you, the environment, and a picture that shows how freaked out you are. And that's basically it. The input is pretty much just one button for the majority of the game. And you're not given a lot of context. You're just like, you're taken to this house and some stuff went bad and you have to figure out why and try to save yourself and your fellow children who were brought here with you. Like, why is this pile of rocks here? We don't know. Interesting. So you see, here's the inventory. So you can select that, and you can interact by doing stuff like that. So as you can see, I just managed to beat my way outside. But we'll come back here, because I want to show you something else first. And that's what's great about this game. It's not complicated. Like, I could hand this game to anyone who doesn't really play games, and they would have no problem picking it up and figuring it out. It's simple. It's elegant. It's very pretty by the standards of 16-bit systems. And it's a horror game that actually manages to be a horror game and can be pretty damn scary even to this day. And that is, frankly, an amazing accomplishment. And that's one of the things I really have learned to respect. Like, I'll be honest with you, before I did Monster Party, I'd never even heard of Human Entertainment. I had heard of Clock Tower, but I'd never heard of this developer before. They actually didn't put out that many games before going out of business, but I have already developed an immense respect for this team simply because I have a lot of respect for any developer that knows they're not necessarily catering to a mass audience, but who has decides that in spite of that they are going to find a niche and thrive in it. Human probably had lots of opportunities to make more mainstream titles that would have had larger appeal and probably would have made them a lot more money and kept them in business for longer. But they decided, no, you know what? You know what's very interesting? In the past, when I played this game, I'm pretty sure there was something in that box. I could be totally wrong about that, though. I may be misunderstanding it. But anyway, they probably had plenty of opportunities to make more mainstream stuff, but they went, no, you know what? We like horror games. We want to make horror games. And we know that this audience is tiny, but that's what we're going to do. And they did it, and ultimately that strategy was not necessarily a sound business one, I guess. But I really respect any developer that does that just says, this is what we want to do, and damned if it's broad appealing or not. That's a mentality that we obviously are seeing a lot more in the indie space these days, but this was an era where there was no such thing as indie developers. This was the console, the 16-bit... Ooh, that's a little creepy. This was the 16-bit console era, where you played ball with the platform holders and with publishers and what they wanted. And Human... Oh, God! Why did a mirror strangle you? Who knows? Game over. All right, I actually knew that was going to happen. So the nice thing is this game is not easy. There are tricky things to figure out in this. There are puzzles in it that are difficult, and this game will punish you arbitrarily in weird ways like that. But the nice thing is it does have a continue system, and even if you want to start over, you actually have the ability to do a quick start, which skips all that preamble at the beginning and just dumps you into the darkened lobby, which I think is really, really cool. Hey, look, there's a bird over here. Why don't we go say hi to the bird? And like the neat thing about this as well is that this game has a wide number of different endings with very different outcomes. Why is this parrot talking about how it's going to kill me? We don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what it's saying. It sounds like it's saying, I'll kill you. Oh, God, bird, why are you doing this to me? I let you out of your cage, and now you're being a dick. So, this game actually had a number of different endings depending on how you proceeded through the story, and that's why you saw that option. Ooh. What ho? What is this interesting water noise? And depending how you progress through it, you could end it a number of different ways, and that's why there's that ending list option on the first menu. There is... Ooh. Why is there lightning in this bathroom? We don't know. But that's really, really cool as well. So you could actually conclude this game in a number of different ways. It was very, very focused on the story. Again, something that you really didn't see a lot in games of this type. It's just wholly unique in so many different ways. And it was unique to the point where Human Entertainment actually published this game themselves. It was much easier to do in Japan. That's one of the reasons this game never came out in Japan, because Japan is such a small market. It's easy to publish on your own. And... Oh, God! What is this? of your fellow children is dead. And what? And here, ladies and gentlemen, is your enemy. Yup. He's a creepy mofo, isn't he? So what will happen is, at certain story points... didn't run away fast enough. At certain key story points, and at, as I understand it, at random points throughout the game, that creepy dude will appear. And when he does, the only thing you can do is run like hell. You got to get away from him, and you got to do it as quick as you can, because you can't fight him. And if he gets near you, well, you saw what happened. That's the only enemy. That's the only thing you have to fight against. And that's awesome. It's psychological horror, and it's the way you do it. And it's the way you did it in the 16-bit era, and these guys did it. And like I was saying before there, what's really cool about this is that in Japan it was easier to publish by yourself because it's such a small market. And that's probably why these games never came out, because Human actually said, you know what, we want to make this game, and the only way we're going to get it out there is to release it ourselves. And that's what they did. They had no external publisher with this game. Human put this title out themselves, and they managed to find their niche in Japan from doing that. Time to get the hell out of here. Oh god. How did he get in? How did he get there? When he came from the bathroom? Who knows? He's a spirit scissor dude. Time to get out of here. Yeah, hi, Killer Parrot. I don't have time for you right now. And what I really love about this game too, as well, is in the atmosphere. And you can probably hear this right now if you have headphones on. If you don't, I would definitely recommend potentially watching this video again with headphones or playing this game with headphones, because the Super Nintendo was actually a stereo console. It had the capability to play sound in stereo, and a lot of people didn't have it hooked up that way because of the way TVs... a lot of TVs didn't support it, and a lot of people didn't... just didn't hook it up that way. And it didn't really matter for the most part, because the Super Nintendo... most Super Nintendo games largely didn't make enough use of stereo to matter. This game absolutely does, in incredible ways. So, for example, if I'm walking her across the screen, her footsteps actually pan with her position on the screen. So, I'll walk her back here so you can hear. So as I walk her, her footstep position actually pans in my headphones, and that happens with all sorts of other sound effects in the game, and that's another way in which the game screws with your head. It just makes fantastic use of stereo sound, which this game, or which most Super Nintendo games did not. And it's really, really, really adds to the tension, and I really like that. And yeah, the more I look of this and the more I read up on Human Entertainment, the more whoa, I haven't been in here before. The more I really have fundamental respect for them. Why are you... The more I really have developed a huge amount of respect for them as a company, because they made games that I'm sure they knew were not going to be popular, but they're the games they wanted to make, and they made them, and they got them out there the only way they were able to, which was to publish them themselves, and that meant that they couldn't secure themselves a place in the North American market, which is a real shame, but it meant that they got to put out the game they wanted, and it really shows. You can really tell that... What the hell? How you doing? Yeah, I imagine you're pretty hungry, aren't you? I don't got no food for you, bro, but we'll see what we can do here. And there's other little nice touches, too, like the fact that when your character is running and she's super stressed out, she can actually trip sometimes. Completely random. the game will just be like, you're stressed out, and when you're stressed out, your hand-eye coordination isn't as good, and you may trip and fall, and that's what happens sometimes. The game will just do that to make you tense and to make you worry. And it's just, you can tell so clearly that this game was made with love and passion. There we go. See what that is? I think, we got it. I honestly don't know what's going to happen there. But this is a project that was clearly made with love, passion, and a desire to make something different. And they totally did it. They actually made a horror game on a 16-bit platform that is actually fairly horrific. And given that Nintendo, they put this out on a Nintendo platform, and I mean, Nintendo's the company that famously sanitized the blood out of Mortal Kombat because they thought it wasn't family friendly enough. But they got this game out there. A game about dead girls in bathtubs and a guy with massive scissors for arms who comes after you, and about a young girl who's terrified. And that is impressive as hell. So if this looks like it might interest you, I would highly recommend trying to get yourself a copy of the English version, or indeed just the Japanese version. If you can read Japanese, this is apparently still out on the Wii Virtual Console on the Japanese store, so you definitely have a means to play it there. And this is a really unique game, and not a lot of people know about it, but more people should, because it's important. There's a lot of stuff in here that has never really been done anywhere else, and it is a real credit to Human Entertainment that they did something this different in an era where this was really not the commonly accepted type of game. And it's a shame they're not around anymore, because if they could have survived longer, like, this is the team this is a team I could totally see doing like a horror game Kickstarter in this day and age and making something really different out of that. And I think it would be really, really impressive to see what they would come up with. But yeah, it's something special. So yeah, the game is a Clock Tower, published and developed by Human Entertainment. May they rest in peace. In 1995 for the Super Nintendo. There was a PC version for Windows that came out in 97. It also came out on the PlayStation in 97 and on the WonderSwan in 99. I've talked this to death already. I think it's really cool, and it's an important game to check out. So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this week-long Retro Flashback Halloweek special. It was a brutal recording schedule, but I had a lot of fun making it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. There's enough, sort of horror-themed games out there that maybe I can be convinced to do this on a yearly basis, so we'll see. Maybe I can pull another 7 games out next year, and we'll see what happens. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. Of course, if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. I don't ask for that in the videos very often, but it would really, really help me out. And I'll be still doing more videos on a regular basis, so keep watching, and hope you guys enjoy it. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.